Okay, today is Friday, June 25th, 2004, and this is the beginning of an interview with Robert Schwerin at the Holiday Inn in Horseheads, New York. Mr. Schwerin is 77 years old, having been born on February 6, 1927. My name is Dan Crandall, and I'll be the interviewer. Mr. Schwerin, could you state your name?
Robert Louis Schwerin.
And which branch of service did you serve in?
The Army.
What was your rank?
Staff Sergeant.
And where did you serve?
Most of my time was served at Los Alamos and Mexico.
All right, here we go. Where were you when World War II began?
World War II began on Sunday, and the first I knew about it, I had helped one of the Naval boys with his paper route. They put out an extra. And he called and wanted to know if I would go help him sell extras. But my parents and my grandparents, all four of them came, 3 from Germany, 1 from Switzerland. And they still remembered the hostility toward Germany and people of German descent during World War I. My mother and daddy would not let me go out and help sell extras because of our German ancestry. And that was the first I knew that the war was starting.
When did you first find out that you were going to be in the Army? How did that come about?
Well, when I was 17, I tried to enlist as an Air Force cadet. And that's when I found out I was colorblind, and I was turned down. So then my brother had already been drafted into the Army a year and a half before I had. And since I was still in high school, it was pretty much taken for granted that upon graduation we would be drafted, and whether we would be drafted into the Navy or the Army or whatever branch of the service they needed us. Majority of them going into the Army.
Right. Did you, or what was your training like?
Well, our training was, the war in Europe had already ended, and our training was directed toward the Pacific Theater. And we trained in Camp Wheeler, Georgia, which is just south of Macon, Georgia. And they had a big swamp down there along the Horseheads River. And although the conditions in Japan were not swampy, they took great delight in having us slog through the swamps. And that was part of our training. Georgia during July and August gets pretty hot, and they also taught us to learn how to live on a canteen of water a day. And that was probably the toughest part of it. We had no long hikes and no heavy field packs. The cavalrymen that trained us were all combat veterans. Some of them had been wounded and still had, some of them had pretty good scars. And they said, we know what combat's like, and we're going to try to keep you alive. And our training was directed toward that end. We learned all the infantry weapons. We learned how to conceal ourselves, digging foxholes. When we were out in the field, we slept under battlefield conditions, slept in foxholes on alert all the time. And we ate regular C and K rations. That border water days is the toughest part of it. You had a choice. You could drink it. It was usually in the evening when they gave you that quart of water. You didn't know whether you wanted to drink it then, or wait until the next day when the sun came out and got real hot, so you had to kind of ration it out as you went along. But that training ended in November, and we were slated to be replacements for the men who were killed and wounded in the invasion of Japan. Japan that fall. But before just a few days after we finished our basic training, another soldier and I, we were sent to Army Finance Corps training in Indianapolis. I don't recall Fort Benjamin Harris. That was the finance training center, and I became a officer's finance clerk, and I did not like office work at all. So in order to get out of being an officer's finance clerk, I re-enlisted in January for 3 years, and I chose the Ordnance Department, and the choice of theater was European. And then we were sent to Aberdeen Proving Grounds, and we started into training as ordnance men. And after a few weeks, a number of us were called into a room, and we were told that we'd been selected. Two criteria. One, you still had to have time on an enlistment or time as a draftee, and you had to have scored rather high on your intelligence test at the time you were drafted, and that we had qualified. They said anyone that had a criminal record or anyone who belonged to a communist type parties, subversive parties would be excused. And then anyone who felt like they did not want to go to this post, they could leave also. And a few of them did. And then they told us that it would be a special project in the United States. We would not be going overseas, and it would take FBI clearance. And so we all agreed, so they handed out the FBI clearance forms and wanted to know all about your past life, and they wanted to know 3 references for your past life. Well, I picked the neighbors. They lived around our neighborhood for a long time, friends with my parents. And the FBI checked them out because a few days they wanted to know what kind of trouble I was in. That's why the FBI was talking to them. And of course, Mother and Daddy didn't know because I hadn't written them anything about it. So they found out in time that I did not have any problems, and that was just so we could be clearance Los Alamos.
So at that time, you had no idea where you were going?
No. They put us on a train, and we rode the train for about almost 2 days, and then we got off at Miami, New Mexico at nighttime, and an Army bus picked us up. We crawled up that hill. It was a moonlight night. You could look over the side, and it wasn't anything but just pitch black on the side of the mountains. And finally we got up to the top, and the bus driver told us that we were in Los Alamos, New Mexico, home of the atomic bomb.
So, and at that point, the war was over with. The bombs had already been dropped. So
yes, the war had been over about 6 months. That was in March of '46.
So what was the next step for you once you arrived at Los Alamos?
So then they processed us through the pass office and gave us a little bit of orientation about our duties and the do's and the don'ts of handling radioactive material. And then we served an apprenticeship for about a week with the security guards that were there. And the security guards that we replaced were the ones that were being discharged. They had been drafted, and the ones that were preparing to go to the Pacific for the 1946 bikini test. So we took their places.
And the people, they were sent off to the Bikini Island test?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, they needed security guards, even though they were the security guards transported, and they were the security force for the radioactive material.
So if this time in your enlistment, in being in the Army, were you being censored? Like if you wrote home, were your letters being censored?
No. During the war, the mail was left left open. You didn't lose the envelopes. And an officer censored the mail.
Was it still going on when you
No.
arrived at Los Alamos?
No, they had relaxed that. That part of it had been relaxed. During the war at Los Alamos, the wax man at the switchboard, they also monitored the conversations. They had the ability to cut off the conversation at any point.
It's pretty tight security.
Well, they wanted Los Alamos to be as secret as possible. And when a telephone call was placed for Los Alamos, he placed the call to a point in Colorado. And that operator then put you in touch with the Los Alamos switchboard. The word Los Alamos was never mentioned.
Really? When you were there also, did you ever feel that you were being watched, or that there might have been FBI agents keeping an eye on what was going on at the base?
At the nightclubs in Santa Fe, we felt like there was always an FBI man somewhere waiting for people to get drunk and talking over them.
Did you ever get directly questioned, or did one ever reveal himself to you?
No, the security office at Los Alamos was, in a sense, it was an offshoot of military intelligence. And we were warned, you don't talk about what you do. Sometimes we didn't even talk about it amongst ourselves in the barracks.
What were the barracks and the food like at Los Alamos?
Well, your barracks were in the shape of an H with the latrines in the middle. And then each long barracks had probably 4 coal-burning stoves. And they were usually sort of filled up in the evenings, and then late about 10 o'clock they would fill them up pretty good. But on a cold night, by morning, of course, people started waking up about 5 o'clock to go to the train. They would throw more coal in, and that would always wake other people up. And then sometimes somebody would throw a 45 shell, and they're just had a little excitement.
I bet you that did. Was the food standard Army food?
Standard Army food, and we pulled no KP. They had young ladies from the Pueblos down in the Rio Grande Valley, and they would come up and they served as KPs. Each Pueblo had its own bus, and they would start out before daylight and bring the ladies and the men who worked up on the hill up. When I refer to the hill, that's just a nickname for Los Alamos. And they would bring them up, and they would do KP duties, and then the men would work on various projects around the camp.
What were your duties at Los Alamos?
Our duties, we were titled security guards, and the security and transportation of the radioactive material was our only concern. We did not process any badges, and we did not check any badges. The MPs did that at the gates. We had to assume that if a person was in that area, that the MPs had checked him and he was supposed to be there. Our duties were in the, we had permanent posts in the processing buildings, where the plutonium, and when the rough castings were made, they were placed in a vault within the fenced area. And then from that vault, that's when our duties began. They had to be milled and put on a lathe and brought down to the exact specifications. Then they had to be coated to retard oxidation. And we would take them to these various shops to be processed. And we stayed with the material and kept it in sight the whole time. And that was our primary duty.
You didn't actually do the machining, though, did you?
No, we were not technicians. We
Right.
were just guards.
Right. What kind of precautions did they urge you to take when you transported the materials? Did they give you any sort of equipment?
Well, they were in lead-lined canisters, and each one was numbered, and they would call for a certain number. Well, one of our officers would come out and open the vault and select the canister that was requested, and then we put it into a sedan. If it was going to an outlying area, there would be two men. If it was going just to a nearby area that was under a rather secure area, then one man would take it. And we never transported any radioactive material except in a sedan that had a radio and a red light and a siren. Then on the road trips outside of Los Alamos, they used sedans and panic trucks. But every time radioactive material was transported, we had radio communication with our security guard office.
I take it you were probably armed when you transported?
Yes, we had our choice. We could either carry a 38 special revolver or a regular 45 automatic.
What were your orders if, let's say, somebody interfered with the transportation of those items? Were
You tried to get out of it while you were still in the sedan, and shooting was your last resort. You tried to escape and use your radio, your red light, and siren, just move out.
How often did you transport items off the base? Was that a frequent thing?
We had they sent us down to the motor pool to obtain licenses for Jeeps, sedans, three-quarter ton trucks, and some of us that were selected as pretty good drivers, they went on and became drivers of 6 by 2.5 ton trucks also. And your panel trucks and 6 bys were used for the off-road base trips. But they were always accompanied. Well, even the sedans. The sedans led the convoy and were to tail the convoy, and the panel trucks were in between. But even the panel trucks had their own radio and red light and siren.
So where were you usually transporting to? Was it always the same place, or was it different places?
It was a variety. The trucks would go to Hanford to pick up the plutonium. They went to Albuquerque because it was shipped on the Santa Fe, and put in on the special siding down in the Albuquerque freight yards. It was picked up down there. If possible, all of the radioactive material off base was transported in daylight hours. And then they went to Rock Island, Illinois, and picked up the bomb casings. Okay.
So that's quite a bit of transportation involved.
Well, when they were transported, and occasionally at nighttime we had to go down to Albuquerque and guard the car all night. And under those conditions, you also allowed the M1 carbine or Thompson submachine gun under those conditions, where you not transporting, but actually discarding.
Right. That's a pretty serious firepower.
Well, they wanted to meet all contingencies.
Were there ever any incidents or accidents?
No, there were no one ever tried to interfere. The only problem they had, one of the sedans was run off in a ditch, and they broke the windshield at that time, and so the convoy had to delay. They went by a junkyard and got a windshield and taped it to the front of the sedan, and then they continued their trip.
But that's not too bad, all things considered. Did they give you any sort of routine medical tests or checkups?
Yes, when you came out of a contaminated area, you had a Q-tip cotton swab, and you ran it in each of your nostrils to see if you were inhaling any contaminated dust. Then, in the real hot areas, you had what they call a film badge. It was like a little pin that you stuck in your pocket. And then if the film showed any developed areas, why, then they knew that you were taking on a certain amount of gamma rays. The gamma rays were the most dangerous. You had the alpha in your beta, and your regular clothes would stop the alpha. And things like a doorway or a wall would stop the beta, but nothing stopped the gamma.
Right. So, let's check this. Okay. So what were the guys like that you served with? What kind of people did you serve with? Do you remember any of them?
Oh yeah, we remembered and kept in touch with several of them. But they were highly intelligent. That was one of the criteria. And so I guess you could say intelligent people get bored pretty quick. And so they were always inventing ways. They had an old motorcycle, and they kept tinkering and tinkering and tinkering and finally got it going. And we all took turns riding motorcycles around. Then we had horses that belonged to the MPs, and they had the Army McClellan saddle. And we could feel free any time that we were off. We could go down to the stables and brush a horse and throw a saddle on him and go riding. So that was, and then we could go swimming. We could use an Army vehicle and go swimming down the Rio Grande. That was usually on the weekend. And then trips to Bandelier National Monument, where the old Indian ruins were. And trips to Santa Fe.
So it's a pretty decent amount of freedom.
Yeah.
Did they allow you to go on leave back home?
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah. There was no. You could go on 3-day passes. You could go on any furloughs, just like normal.
What was your chain of command like there? Who was in charge of you?
It was a very loose. There were no squads, no platoon assignments. You had one group. You had 3 officers, and every few days they put out a schedule for the permanent post. Then they also had supernumeraries who were on call. You had to stay in the barracks. The barracks also had a radio to keep in touch with the office in case of emergency. Or if they had an assignment come in that they had not planned for, then they would radio the barracks and tell certain men to come up to the. We always had panel truck and the jeep around the barracks for transportation, and all of us were required to get a driver's license.
Did you ever have any interaction with the scientists or the researchers working there?
Yes, most of the time we were not a part of any of the work that was done with radioactive equipment. We sort of blended into the background because we had to watch the material. We had one incident in the summer of 1946 at Pyrita Canyon, and there were 9 men in the room, and the security guard was there observing the equipment, the material. And the experiment went sour, and the scientist that was conducting it died 9 days later. But the rest of the people got various doses of radioactivity and it affected them in various ways. The security guard was affected, was not seriously affected, but one of the aftermaths of it, in order to check the bone marrow to see if it was still producing enough white cells, they put him on a gurney, and the doctor put a hypodermic needle into his breastbone and withdrew bone marrow, and that way they checked the long-range effects it might have on him. He was a good friend of ours, and later, after being dismissed from the Armed Forces Special Weapons, he was assigned to Okinawa. When the Korean War started, they desperately needed army over in Korea. He was sent over there as a replacement in an infantry outfit and was killed in September 1950.
I'm sorry to hear that. How did you turn out with the radiation? Were you ever exposed to any serious amount of radiation?
Yes, it was a cumulative thing. It was not a special incident, but having been in contaminated areas in close proximity to the radioactive material, in the spring of 1947, my hair started falling out. And it was about that time that I was taken out of the production area, and I was given a job as a courier. And we had a daily mail run from Los Alamos down to Sandia Base at Albuquerque. And we took communication between those two bases, and we also carried passengers who were going from Los Alamos either to the train station, the civilian airport, or the Army Airport, Curtin Airfield, or Sandia. They could ride with us. And then on the return trip, anyone that was going up to Los Alamos would also ride back with us.
So when that started happening to you, you knew what it was from?
Oh, yes.
And the Army didn't try to cover that up, or?
No. Yeah, they take your blood sample and record your white count. And that was indicative of how much radiation, correlation between white count and radiation.
Or did you ever receive any sort of compensation for that?
No, I never claimed any damage. And when I got away from the normal duties, well, then my hair started to, not as much fell out. It didn't last long.
You never suffered any long-term consequences?
No. I had one scare of them. After very short time after I got out of the Army, I had a fatty tumor develop. And so I was in an Army hospital and they removed that fatty tumor. But they took too long doing the pathology on that tumor. And I woke up on the operating table while they were sewing me up. So that was a cussed experience.
Yes. That happened after you were out of the service?
Yes, and I went to an Army hospital because I felt it was related. Anyway, that was in the morning. The next time I woke up, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was in a ward, and somebody was walking by, and I talked to them and asked them to bring me a drink of water. So they really put me out a long time.
Yeah.
And the next morning, the old gray-haired doctor came in. He stopped at my pump. He kind of smiled and said, "You put up a hell of a struggle, didn't you?" And then, about 2 years later, I had another fatty tumor. At that time is when I went to the library and started reading as much. So that's the last fatty tumor that I had. The first one I didn't think much of, but when the second one came, I thought, well, there may be something to this thing.
When did the second one happen?
The second one happened in 1952. I was married by that time, and like I said, I was a little bit more concerned because I was married.
Sure. You weren't married while you were in the service?
No, I would hate to have been married and not be able to live with my wife. I don't know how the veterans that were married can stand it.
When you were in, what would you say was the scariest thing that happened to you while you were in the service?
The scariest thing that happened to me was not really related to anything, but in Los Alamos, in trying to improve the technique for the implosion bomb, they would run tests, a full-scale test of the explosive lenses that compressed metal. And it took more than one day to set up this test and to do the X-ray photography and record, everything, the instrumentation that went with it, and the source of detonation, which involved a lot of initiators. And it took a long time to set it up. Well, because we had radio control, not radio, but we had radio communications with our sedans, they would have 2 of us babysit this explosive device at nighttime. And it was in an isolated canyon away from Los Alamos. And we would go down there in the evening before the scientists left. And we parked close to the explosive device, had the headlight shining on it. And every half hour we would crank up the vehicle, shine the lights, make sure everything was like it's supposed to be, and then radio in the office that everything was still okay. Well, along about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, things were real quiet down in the canyon, and it was warm. We had the windows rolled down. And there was a coyote. He couldn't have been more than 75 or 100 foot away. And all of a sudden, he let out a blood-curdling howl. And the hair on the back of my neck raised up. And when you're half asleep, it startles the hell out of you. And once you realize that it's a coyote, well, everything's all right again. But that scared the hell out of me until I realized it was a coyote.
What would you say would be the funniest thing that happened to you while you were in the service?
I don't know. That would be hard to there were two or three things. One of the security guards was very young. He was too young to be married, and he, in writing letters, he couldn't resolve any differences with his wife, and he got a long distance divorce, and so he invited everybody to help celebrate his divorce. So the whole barracks, we all celebrated his divorce with him. And then there was a time that, as the Atomic Energy Commission, civilians were taking over our work, while the PX warehouse still had a quantity of Greasy Dick beer that was manufactured by the Greasy Dick brothers of San Antonio, Texas. And there was so much beer that they feared that they would never get rid of it, so they started selling beer at a nickel a bottle. Well, the PX closed at 10 o'clock at night. Some of the old boys, they were just half loot. They wanted to get all the way loot, so we gathered up, took up the collection, bought 2 cases of beer. And then some of them scrubbed out a GI garbage can, and we put the beer in there and put enough water just to cover it. And then they had dry ice up in the tech area, and some of them got in a Jeep, and since our badges would allow us to go anywhere on the post, they went into the tech area and got some dry ice and came back and cooled the beer down. And we drank beer all night long. And it lasted about a day, and by the time the beer played out, well, we were so tired of beer and disgusted that we never did that again.
Did you get in any trouble for that?
No.
No.
The sergeants were in on that too. And the officers never knew about it.
That's a good thing. So when did you, or actually there's a separate question, sorry. Were there any full-blown detonations out there? Did they actually drop any atomic bombs while you were stationed there?
No. No, the Pacific test in 46 and the test in 47, they were the only detonations that went on. They had not started any of the detonations in the United States. The Frenchman flat out in Nevada. No, that hadn't started yet.
When your time of service was about to expire, because you said you enlisted again in 46.
And I was due to be let out in 1949 in January. That's when I was discharged. But after we were replaced by Atomic Energy Commission people, we were sent to Sandia. Sandia was also a part of the Armed Forces Special Weapons. And Sandia had a system of caves to store atomic bombs. And most of the men that were formed into this provisional MP detachment had been MPs or security guards at Los Alamos. And one day they called a group of us, I think it was about a half a dozen, and we went up to a cave and drew out one of the atomic bombs. It was on a carrier, a little cart of its own. And we went down to the loading pit on a taxiway that ran over from Curtin Field. And since we delivered the bomb, we were able to watch them load this bomb into a B-29. So I felt real fortunate that we were able to witness that. But the reason they wanted us to witness that and to carry the bomb out of the cave, because in a few weeks they put us on a train and we wound up down in Camp Hood, Texas. Not in the camp itself, but at an installation about 5 miles south of Camp Hood. They had a 10,000-foot runway and a taxiway. The taxiway led to a load of pit there. And they also had finished a system of caves, and it was a brand new installation. We were the first people to occupy the two-story barracks. It was a permanent installation. It was a masonry building, brick-sided building. And so we were also putting bombs in those caves. And we did that, maybe 4 or 5 months, and then we turned it over to the Army Air Force. And then we were sent back to Sandia, and then we served out our time in Sandia.
So I take it the bombs were still pretty big at this point.
Yes, they were the implosion bombs. They had not, or I guess they were working in designing different Mark IIs, Mark IIIs, and things like that. But no, the bombs were the standard implosion bombs at that time.
So you mentioned that the Atomic Energy Commission came in?
Yes.
And when did that happen and send you to
The
San Diego?
transition went on with various departments. I would say the last security guards left in December, and a few of them perhaps in the first week in January, at the end of 47 and beginning of 48.
And that's when they sent you to Sandia and
Yes.
then on to Fort Hood and back?
Yes.
All right. So that was actually a couple year time period altogether that happened in, or a little over a year?
Well, my time with the Los Alamos and the Armed Forces Special Weapons amounted to 2 years and probably 21 months.
When your time was coming up, did you consider re-enlisting?
No, I had never considered re-enlisting. The difference between the wartime army and the peacetime army was too great. I didn't plan. I had a captain, and I had known him at Los Alamos, and he also went with us down to Camp Hood. And he and I had 2 or 3 long discussions about my going to OCS. And I never really gave it serious thought. I had wanted to be a forest ranger. I enjoyed being in the outdoors. And when I was discharged, I went to Mississippi State College and majored in animal husbandry. But I also took a few forestry classes. But I made my living as a farmer and cattleman all of my life.
Did you stay in Mississippi to do that?
No, my home was in Memphis, and we bought a small place it's close to Memphis, in a farming community. And we raised 6 children, and they've all done rather well. I'm glad none of them chose to follow in my footsteps. They're making a whole lot more money than we've been real blessed. We were able to college educate all of our children except one, and he went through a trade school and learned the aircraft mechanics.
Very good.
I've got a daughter that's a veterinarian. She's married to a veterinarian, and they're strictly small animal practitioners. And we had to take veterinary courses in our education down at Mississippi State. And so I can still teach them a few things about the cow.
Do you have any regrets about your service and your time involved with it?
No, I feel that we were privileged to go to Los Alamos. It's a humbling experience to be with the learned people that worked on that farm. I mean, you're in the National Honor Society. You've taken chemistry, you've taken physics in high school, and you think you know a lot. You don't know the truth. Those people are geniuses. They can make anything that they need this first television set I ever saw after Dr. Slogan's accident when he was killed. The next, after they had cleaned that area up, the next time that test was run, another GI and I carried the material. I'll leave you catch. But they had learned their lesson. This time, they did it by remote control. They had a television camera, had a television monitor, and they viewed the process from behind a plate glass window. And that's the first television I had ever seen. I had heard about television. That's the first time I'd ever seen it.
I learned quickly. If there's anything about this time period, about the atomic period, the development of the bombs, what do you think is the most important thing for people to remember about it?
The thing that bothers me most and people have lost sight of it, are these people who try to revise history. You had to live in that time frame and understand the mentality not only of our people, but the mentality of the enemy. Even after they dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, the ruling class of the militarists still wanted to fight to the last man. And in dropping these bombs, they killed a lot of Japanese. But had we gone in there and invaded Japan, we would have killed many. And the revisionists seem to have lost sight of that. They say about it.
Is there anything additional you'd like to add to the record before we close up?
No, that's about it. I do want, well, I can say one thing. I did meet General Groves.
Yes.
As my duty as a courier during the 1947 test. And it was probably due to the time difference between Pacific and Mountain Time in the United States. But normally we picked up the mail pouch and any passengers right after lunch. But when we went to pick up the mail pouch, they said, mail pouch is ready to go, but we're waiting on a special message. And late in the afternoon, we were just sitting around on the steps at headquarters down in St. Dean. And late in the afternoon, a lady came out and said, we're ready for you now. Come back in. So I went in, and they handed me a plain white envelope and said, this is for General Groves. You are to deliver it personally to him and no one else. So I took the letter and the mail pouch, and we started back to Los Alamos. And by the time we got back up there, the sun had gone down behind the big mountain. It was almost dark. General Groves was sitting on the headquarters steps. He had a scowl on his face. I guess we kept him waiting too long. But anyway, my feet had no sooner touched the ground. He hollered out, Sergeant, you got a letter for me. And I said, yes, sir. And I walked over and saluted him, handed him the letter, and he returned my salute. And I went inside, and there was a clerk still inside waiting on the pouch. And when I came out, he was reading that letter, and I never bothered to salute or anything. And then I got back in the sedan, and we drove over to the motor pool, and that was it.
I understand he had quite a presence to him.
He had a commanding presence. But he was the first general I ever saluted, but he wasn't the last, because I met another general down at San Diego. And he seemed a little nicer than General Gross. That's about it.
Thank you.
Okay.